Oof, you are so quotable, Lauren. Because we are trapped often in the belief that it's fun and it's making us feel good, but it's actually making us feel worse most of the time. And it's really tough when part of us is saying, yeah, this is a great idea. And then you literally do feel the exhale. Ah, you literally do feel the pressure come off your shoulders. Ah, you feel that visceral change in your posture and you relax and you feel more fun and loud and maybe chatty and confident and sexy and expressive and all the things that you want to feel, but you don't, but you pretend you feel them, but you don't. And so, in the exhale, how do we support people to exhale without alcohol and really just sink into themselves?
It's the lifetime work.
You're listening to The New Boss. I'm your host, Emily Bauman. Let's go.
I'm your host, Emily Bauman, and today I have such a special guest for you. I'm tingling. This is the episode where we talk with Lauren Fay, a world-leading alcohol-free empowerment coach. She is here to talk sobriety. She is here to talk about epiphany moments. And I know by the end, you're going to have some different perspectives on your relationship to alcohol, to substances, and yourself. So, Lauren, welcome.
Yay. Thank you so much for having me. Now I'm tingling.
Where are you tuning in from, my love? Where are you?
I am right side. I'm right outside of Seattle in a town called Gig Harbor, Washington State.
Oh, so cozy. I can imagine the mist on the harbor rising up and infusing your days with the most beautiful atmosphere. So tell me, let's dive right in because you know I love a juicy story. As an empowerment coach, as someone who decided to become free of alcohol herself, what was the moment where you knew that you could no longer relate to alcohol in the same way? Can you bring us into the heart of your story?
The heart of my story would take us right into my personal rock bottom. And that was the moment that I knew. So I absolutely had a very unhealthy relationship with alcohol. I overconsumed. I wanted it all the time. It was part of my identity. I was a socialite. I was a red wine girl. I was a top shelf martini drinker. I would walk around the club with like my one cocktail and nurse it all night because I didn't like to be drunk in public. But I loved drinking alcohol. It was seducing to me. It was just this allure, this identity that I loved being a part of. And that led to overconsumption. But I wasn't physically dependent on alcohol. So I didn't have, I had terrible hangovers, but I didn't have what one would label an alcoholic to be. However, the way that it bankrupted me on a soul level, it took away all passion for life. It took away all inspiration on being anything else. It took me down that wallowing in self pity and victimhood and all of those really dark places. And so the epiphany for me was that I actually started to question on if I wanted to be alive. And
Wow.
so the alcohol wasn't going to kill me. Again, I didn't need a medical detox. It wasn't hurting my liver at a capacity. You know what I'm saying? Like physically, I was okay, but spiritually and mentally and emotionally, I wasn't. And so when I decided that I did, in fact, want to be alive, the very next epiphany was that I can't drink alcohol anymore. So I was able to see that there was a connection. I was able to see that if I wanted to actually be alive in my life, I couldn't keep doing this thing. And so I stopped drinking alcohol the moment I decided to stop drinking alcohol. And I have never gone back to it. It'll be 7 years in January.
Oh, wow. Congratulations.
Thank you.
So, what was the link for you between Like, how did you know that alcohol was fueling this? Because a lot of people struggle with low self-esteem, self-doubt. Like, how can you be alive in our current society and not need to overcome those patterns? But I'm curious, like, how did you know what was fueling it?
I'm not entirely sure because a lot of the introspection and self actualization, of course, came in hindsight, right? So, what I know about myself now to be true back then, I didn't really know back then that I was really, it was, I still am a highly sensitive woman, very empathic woman, very, very intuitive, not understanding energy. I suffered through a debilitating relationship with perfectionism and people pleasing, terrified of disappointing people. And so I was living a double life. The Lauren that I portrayed to the world, the one that showed up to her family and to her job and to her friends, wasn't the woman that was behind closed doors. And so I was able to see, though, that the woman behind closed doors was the one that drank all the alcohol. And so for me, it was, if I don't want to be this version of me anymore, then I need to stop doing this action. And I was able to make that connection, but I don't think in the moment I knew that alcohol was the reason I felt disconnected from purpose, or alcohol was the reason I didn't have, like, is that, I didn't make those connections. I just knew that I had a habit that had consumed my life. It had consumed my mind. I didn't like how it made me feel. So I needed to stop doing that thing.
That makes so much sense. So, as a coach in this space, what does the average person look like when they come to you and they know? Because it takes a certain amount of self-awareness to be like, okay, I need a sobriety coach. I need to work with someone who specializes in living alcohol-free with joy. So, what is a typical person coming to you with? What are they looking for?
The typical person, I work with women. So the typical woman who comes to me is tired of giving alcohol so much power in her life. And so while I am niched as an alcohol free empowerment coach, and I specifically chose that because one will not understand a relationship with alcohol to the level of debilitation unless you've actually been through it. And so that right there is me saying, I know this relationship and I know how to get through this relationship and be successful on the other side. But actually, my approach is very much not about the alcohol. It's really about just creating a life where alcohol doesn't fit. So the woman who comes to me doesn't want a traditional approach. She doesn't want to go to like the rooms of AA or to go to a treatment center or to label herself an alcoholic or to, declare that she's powerless to the substance for the rest of her life or that she has a disease. She doesn't want any of those things. And so the woman who comes to, and none of those things are bad. Like what's great about the industry is there's so many different levels of support and different types of coaching. But the woman who comes to me doesn't want those things. She wants to have the identity shift. She wants to be free from the obsession. She wants it to be a non event in her life. And she's already decided she's done with it. Maybe she hasn't already stopped the action of drinking, but she's already decided to do that. And that decision point is a non negotiable to work together. You have to be decided because ultimately you're the only one that can do it for yourself.
How would you feel about someone who said, I'm ready to be alcohol free and I'm still gonna do a whole ton of plant medicines? I have an ayahuasca retreat coming up and I love to microdose mushrooms because in the space there seems to be a lot of discussion about the roles of what's a drug, what's not a drug, what is sobriety about. So I'm just curious about your take if someone were to approach you with that desire.
Right. And I'm glad you asked because honestly, that leaves the word sobriety is up for interpretation, which is why I niche to alcohol free. I mean, cocaine's a part of my story. I don't do that anymore. I don't smoke tobacco or do any of those things. But I have gone on psychedelic journeys and they have helped me tremendously just excavate some of that deep, deep stuff that I couldn't quite get to myself. I've also been able to get there through breath work though. So there's different things that we can do. So if a woman comes to me and says she wants to do all of those things, I won't coach her through it because it's not in my zone of genius. It is outside of my expertise. But I don't, I wouldn't say you can't do it. So really the only parameters with working with me is if we're going to look at your relationship with alcohol, then we need to stop drinking the alcohol. Because if you keep doing the thing that's keeping you trapped, you're not going to get free and you're not going to get results from this coaching. So we look at the alcohol. While I don't advocate for filling it with something new, I know the profound impact and revelations and clarity that can come from plant medicine journeys, as long as we don't trade one addiction for another. Too much of anything can not be good anymore.
Yes, and I can envision that as you support women to build a life where alcohol has no room, that very discerning energies will rise up in the woman and that she'll know, okay, am I just fooling myself into switching up the substance for something else? Or is this a genuine bona fide support system on my path to sovereignty?
Yes, exactly. And I actually just closed a coaching container with a woman who decided on her own to stop drinking, but her biggest thing that was holding her in the moment was marijuana. And I personally have no relationship to marijuana. I've never enjoyed it. And so I don't know it intimately, but the concepts are the same, right? And the identity shifting is the same, and the uncovering is the same. And so we still worked through that together, and she's feeling great. So,
Amazing.
yeah.
It all comes back to what I'm hearing and what I know for myself is whether you're approaching something with respect and honor and sacredness, or whether you're tricking yourself into thinking you're doing that, but actually something very deep and different is going on. And something that shifted for me, so I was alcohol free for 3 years while living in Tulum, Mexico, because I was doing such deep work that I couldn't get to those layers in the fog of the spirit of alcohol. Because as you and I know, and I don't know if our listeners would agree with this or if it's like, oh, yeah, of course, it's a clear concept, but each of the alcohols is a different spirit and we call them spirits for a reason. So mezcal, is a very different spirit from, say, rye or rum. And I literally become a different person even after one drink of each of these. As an empath, as someone super tapped in, I become fighty on rye. Like I almost got into a bar brawl with a woman because I drank rye one night. Who does that? That's not me, I was like, why do I want to hit a bitch? Like, no, we don't do that. But she was bumping up me on the dance floor. She was like elbowing me a little bit. I don't know if she even knew, but girl, we got into it and my brother pulled me off her. And the next day I was like, we don't drink rye anymore. We don't do that. And the same with pirates, I swear so much more when I have golden rum. And I grew up in the Caribbean where golden rum is just, you can get 100-year-old bottle and some people sip it and they have really deep conversations. It's like scotch, Each of these alcohols can be treated with reverence, but it's like you have to know which spirit you're approaching and what they bring because they're going to ride you and you're creating space for them to ride you and to blend their codes with your codes and to hijack parts of your system. So, what are your thoughts? Is there ever a way that we can dance with the spirits of alcohol in a way that's safe and, adding to our story rather than taking away from it? What do you think? I need to know.
Oh, everything you just articulated, my brain was like, pew, 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 which direction do I want to go with this? Just for me, it was gin. Gin turned me into a different. As far as can someone dance with the spirit of alcohol, I am not on a mission to make alcohol bad or evil or wrong. That is not my stance. I think that there are some facts that have come out about it for health reasons and all of that that we just can't deny the data. But I'm not one to advocate for the consumption of anything that isn't going to make you feel how you want to feel. And so my only stance is intention. What is your intention behind the consumption? Or even what is your intention behind the plant medicine? What is your intention of anything that is going to alter you from your state? Do you want to feel different? Are you trying to excavate something and explore something? Are you trying to understand something on a deeper level? And to really understand the intention behind it. And then at the end of the day, just respecting your own personal choice and free will. If you do it and you try to have a relationship with it and it does not serve you, then you can always choose again. You don't have to stay with it if it's not working for you. And for me, it didn't work with me. And I'm not even interested in exploring if it can work with me at this point in my life because it just doesn't fit into my life anymore. And that's where I like to try to get my women as well is let's just get to the point where it's done. It's like old behavior, it's in the past, and let's not even crack open the door to, a new relationship with it. But again, you can try. You can try if you want. So
Mm,
I don't know if that directly answered your question, but I do
absolutely.
I do believe that at the end of the day, it's just really asking the honest question of, is this serving me or making me feel the way I want to feel? And if the answer is no, then just let it go. Just let it go. And of course, we'll have to look at all the reasons why you want to stick with it. Most of it is societal conditioning and social pressures and whatnot, but just let it go from your own soul.
Mm, I feel that. I feel that when you say it. And what are some of the health reasons? Because we have a lot of, very analytical minds listening who care deeply about their bodies and themselves. And maybe that's going to be a consideration. Like, do you know any of the new science that's come out? Anything you want to share?
Yeah, I probably wouldn't dive directly into statistics or reports or anything like that. That is outside of my expertise, my zone of genius. But I work in terms of energy, and again, like I just said, I in how it makes one feel. And so we can't deny the fact that if we're waking up every day hungover, then we're already at an energy depletion, right? We can't deny the fact that if we're ingesting and not a judgment, but if a poison, maybe it's a judgment, I don't know, a chemical, then your body as a machine has to work really, really hard to process it out. So again, in terms of energy, now our energy is going to processing out a substance versus going to how do you want to show up in your day? What sort of experiences do you want to create for yourself? What sort of goals are you trying to accomplish and work, or how do you want to feel with your family? And so, in terms of energy, it's just being really mindful of if you're going to ingest this thing, which is a choice and you can if you want, your body has to work really hard to get it out.
Mm.
Right. And what sort of impact does that have in the long term? And how does that, deplete the oxygen from your cells? And I think the barometer is how do you feel when you wake up in the morning? And if you don't have a pep to your step and you know it's connected to the choices you made the night before, then maybe make different choices.
Amen. Amen. I know there was definitely a time in my own journey where I was deeply in denial of how unhappy I was. And it corresponded directly to how much red wine I was chugging every night. And I
Every
would, when you said top shelf martinis, I was like, oh yeah, my go-to when I was working for the Canadian government and I was a diplomat and I had this really fancy passport that proved I was a diplomat and I would get sent all over the world and feel so powerful and special and secretly miserable. And I had a beautiful romantic relationship that didn't fulfill me. He didn't even believe in magic or divinity. And so at night, I would paint, right? It was like my secret time where this mermaid life essence inside of me had a little tiny crack to come through. And so I'd get out my paints. He'd usually gone to bed around 10 because he was very healthy and regimented. And I was like, let's go, mermaid time. And I would get out my paints and take over the living room and crack open like a $25, $30 bottle of wine and drink the whole thing myself until 2 or 3 a.m. And then I would just go to bed, flop into bed next to him, and know I had to be up early and I had to look sharp and put on my high heels and red lipstick and do it all over again. But it was like my secret realness. It was like a crack in my life where the real essence of me got to be expressed. And that unhealthy behavior went on for 4 years, and obviously I participated in a lot of drunken, debaucherous dinner parties with other unhappy public servants with repressed creativity. But through it all, I knew deep down that this wasn't sustainable, but it was a classic numbing out, a classic coping and trying to reach something inside myself. And I thought that red wine unleashed my creativity. That was a story that I was telling myself. And then fast forward 3 years, quitting all of that, moving back to Haiti, working for the United Nations, I had such a different life, and alcohol wasn't necessary because I was enjoying everything too much. And then I looked around at all of the aid workers, the humanitarian workers, and people were slamming so much really hard liquor because they were so burnt out and they couldn't admit it. And they had compassion fatigue and they didn't want to admit it. And they missed their families back home and they felt guilty about not being near their kids and they didn't want to admit it. So yeah, it was like when I was faced with people who were very much like I had been 3 years ago, I was like, ooh, now I really see myself. I was mirrored in them. And that's when I said, this is really not going to be a path for me because I see now that I was starting to do breath work and I was doing daily chakra cleanse meditations and I was working on my energy, shifting my life. And then I was finally able to see in the mirror of other unhappy people that I was like, oh, that was me.
Yeah. And so often the unhappiness isn't necessarily expressed outwardly. And so now, in terms of energy, I mean, people could tell that maybe I wasn't happy, like the normal bubbly social butterfly Lauren that I typically was. A lot of that, again, my relationship with alcohol was behind closed doors. And so when I was alone with myself, it was this conundrum of feeling like the alcohol, the wine specifically, I loved red wine, was my exhale. And I could just drop the facade of how I was showing up during the day and how I wanted people to see me and the avatar that I would wear in public to make sure I was portrayed a certain way. And I would get home and I could just let all of that go. And I would feel reprieve for a brief moment, maybe even happy for a brief moment. But the more I consumed, the deeper I would go down. And whether that was tuning into all the things that I didn't feel were working in my life, or brewing some deep resentments, or navigating grief, or whatever it might be, or just worrying about, oh my gosh, how am I going to feel tomorrow? Have I drunk too much? Am I going to be able to have enough time to sleep it off? And then that obsession, that franticness almost to get out of it, which just exasperates, I feel like, all the symptoms. And so
Mm.
um, while a lot of people won't look at their relationship to alcohol because they'll say, well, I'm not unhappy, they're like, I'm fine. And again, not trying to make it good, bad, or wrong, like alcohol can be a lot of fun. But then the honest inventory is, well, how do you feel when you're alone with yourself? You know, what's starting to maybe poke you a little bit or nudge you a little bit, that's starting to catch your attention, maybe the parts of you that you don't want to confront or to ask about or to look at. It gets really, really real when you need to get real with yourself, and that's required to change your relationship to alcohol. Otherwise we'll get trapped in the romanticization of it and the belief that it's making us feel good when it's probably not.
Oof, you are so quotable, Lauren. Because we are trapped often in the belief that it's fun and it's making us feel good, but it's actually making us feel worse most of the time. And it's really tough when part of us is saying, yeah, this is a great idea. And then you literally do feel the exhale. Ah, you literally do feel the pressure come off your shoulders. Ah, you literally feel that visceral change in your posture and you relax and you feel more fun and loud and maybe chatty and confident and sexy and expressive and all the things that you want to feel, but you don't, but you pretend you feel them, but you don't. And so, in the exhale, how do we support people to exhale without alcohol and really just sink into themselves? I guess that's the lifetime work.
It's the lifetime work. I was just speaking with a client this morning about this particular thing where we take out the alcohol and life gets really real, because alcohol is not selective. Oftentimes we say we're drinking over the not good stuff. Well, you're also drinking over the good stuff. Alcohol doesn't care if you are having a bad day or a good day. It's going to just, as it's designed as a depressant, it's going to neutralize all feelings. It's going to neutralize your good feelings and it's going to neutralize your bad feelings. So now when you take out the alcohol, you're a full spectrum human. You feel it all. And that means you feel the feelings that you intended to drink over, that you intended to cover up with the alcohol, the ones that maybe you didn't want to feel or explore, and now you have them. And so what do? honestly, one of the first things to do is just to accept that we have so many feelings, and thank goodness we do, because that's what makes this human experience so colorful. I'm fully present for the good. I'm also fully present for the bad. And I have the privilege of experiencing it all. But in terms of like more tangible, practicals and strategies, it really is important to learn new habits and rituals that set you up for, your little tools that you need when you're navigating the big feelings. And so, what feels supportive for you? What other habits can you bring into your life? And for me, I loved actually drinking the alcohol, but more so than that was the ritual of grabbing the bottle, opening the bottle, grabbing my stemware. I did not drink any alcohol out. If someone gave me a glass of red wine in a coffee mug, I didn't want it. I didn't want the alcohol in the coffee mug. I wanted the experience of the red wine in the glass and holding the glass in my hand. And that to me was the ritual. And so even today, I drink almost all of my liquids out of wine glasses. I love holding the wine glass. So creating new rituals for yourself that feel just as seductive and satisfying and as the ritual with the alcohol did. And then of course, like all the other tools that we could unpack. I mean, we could make a whole laundry list of tools that someone can do, but recognizing that that's required. It is going to be required to find something new to replace the old. Otherwise you have a void, and then you're going to feel incomplete.
Oh my goodness, that rings so many bells about the ritual. And I just had a ding ding moment, and maybe some of our listeners will too, because I still drink all of my juices and smoothies out of beautiful, expensive stemware.
Yes.
And and I replaced my red wine with this recipe that I'm going to tell you right now. So you take sparkling water and then you add in some apple cider vinegar, maybe like a tablespoon, and then you put in a little bit of kava. And kava is a nervous system relaxant, and you can put in like 3 drops so you don't even know. But that was my bridge out of alcohol forever. And then, like it was just what I needed to feel like I am swirling something beautiful, and this beverage has a tang to it, and it's got a little bit of a something. And then I removed the kava, and just having that sparkling wine equivalent felt so good. What are some of your favorite beverages that are non-alcoholic to share with our lovely listeners?
So we are very lucky today that there is a competition for who is going to be the best NA distributor. I mean, it is taking off like wildfire, which is awesome for those who are changing their relationship to alcohol today. I changed my relationship to alcohol almost 7 years ago, and those did not exist. We had the Frey alcohol-free wine, which anyone knows is like grape syrup in a bottle. And then there was O'Doul's, which I grew up watching my grandpa drink. So I did not go into the NA scene when I got sober. And now that I've been sober for so long, it doesn't entice me. I've lost the taste for it. I don't want to drink something that resembles wine. I don't have the taste for wine anymore. But I do love that there's options out there for others. So for me, it's always been, sparkling water with a couple drops of bitters and some fresh squeezed lime and lemon and putting it in a pretty glass. And whenever I go to any restaurant, that's what I say. I say, I'll have some club soda with lime and bitters, but put it in a fancy glass, because I'm not boring. I'm just alcohol free. Please don't give me my mocktail in a blue Pepsi glass with a straw. Like, there's those blue
Yes.
plastic Pepsi cups. I'm like, no, 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 no. Like, bring it to me in a wine glass. And I do that. And so I have fun with it. So that's my go-to. I also am a big kombucha fan. I'm very particular on the kombuchas, be very mindful of the sugar content. Some of them are like, drinking a candy bar.
The kombucha in Mexico was phenomenal, like the hibiscus and rose blends. So that's a fun thing. And there's a lot of YouTube videos about how to culture them yourself and how to
Mhm.
create your own kombucha if you go deep.
I
Yes.
tried. I actually made my own in Mexico. I was spending so much more money supporting the local kombucha makers. And while I enjoyed doing that, I had collected so many bottles. And I was like, how about we try to make it? And it's a process. You have to mother that, that SCOBY or culture, whatever it is. If you don't mother it, it dies and nothing is successful, which can transpire into so many lessons in life. Yeah, I the kombucha in Mexico was absolutely delicious. And I'm more of an earthy girl, so I don't really go towards the florals or the fruits. I really like, herbs in my kombucha, or ginger, turmeric, sage, basil. So, yeah, grounding, very grounding.
Oh, gorgeous. So if someone were curious about where to begin their introspection, maybe working with you or someone like you, where do you suggest they begin? Do you have a website or a social media? What is the best way for people to connect with you?
Well, I think they should connect with me only after they ask themselves and, like, getting still, getting quiet, closing their eyes, tuning into their hearts, and a lot tuning in. What does that mean? Just tuning inward to your own inner dialogue, detaching from all the external noise and everything that you think you should be doing and how you should be acting and other people's opinions, and just going in and asking yourself, am I happy? And with X, Y, and Z, insert here, am I happy, with whatever? And if the answer is no, then you can just continue. Like, do I want to settle in this state? Do I really want to just have a good life and let it be fine as it is, or good enough as it is? When what if it could be great? And just opening up the curiosity. And then the curiosity is going to take you straight to my page, which is Lauren Faye Coaching on Instagram. And oh, I just eat up all the curious women that come, because that's what's necessary. I'm even going to say that's what's required to have
Mm,
a successful journey, is the curiosity and the willingness to do things differently.
mm.
So Instagram is at Lauren Faye Coaching. Website is also Lauren Faye Coaching. And, pretty soon I'll be putting a book in their hands.
Yes, let's talk about that, baby, because you've started your own beautiful journey very bravely taking the step to writing a memoir, which is a blend of how to and your riveting, raw personal story. And I have the honor of being your book doula inside of the Boss Books Collective. And as we know, Boss is being of sacred service. You're such an epitome of that, just being willing to tell your story in a way that offers it up as a guidepost. How has your experience been so far?
Mm. Well, my entire sobriety journey has been through healing through storytelling, because again, my addiction, my debilitating relationship with substances, was the fear of what people would think of me, or what would happen if they actually knew the truth. I was silenced. And so being willing to first know and acknowledge what my truth was, which was that I was struggling with alcohol and was very unhappy, and then being willing to speak it, was so deeply healing. And now I'm taking it even further into book writing, which, whoo, talk about cracking through some layers of being seen and being witnessed, and what are people going to think and all of that. But for me, it's required for me that I can't not write this book. It's been trying to be birthed through my body for years, and I'm finally going through the labor pains and letting her come out. And like you said, it's not necessarily a how to, but I want the readers to be inspired and feel like they know what to do or what's available to them through my storytelling, which is going to be very raw and unfiltered.
Yeah, baby. That's what I want to hear. And I will say, as your doula, like, I feel your readiness comes through. A lot of people need emotional distance from traumatic events like sexual assault, like really tough relationships, divorces, all of these different elements. You need years of distance before you're able to dance with the story in a way that you own the story and the story doesn't own you anymore, and that you're in command of it. And the audience, the reader, they'll always be able to feel who's in charge here, you know? Are you trembling from emotion, or are you about to lose it because you can't actually speak it yet? And I just want to say, I feel your readiness, Lauren. And this
Oh, it's
book
so good.
is, yeah.
Yeah, it's been waiting to come out. There's something that wanted to come through, and it's lost me in this moment. But well, I guess one thing that I can say is, oh, no play on words. I am an open book. Like, anyone who works with me or goes to my socials knows that I'm very, very exposed and vulnerable while writing this book. even though there's no shame anymore in my story, it has been fascinating to have even more revelations almost 7 years later, connecting dots that maybe I didn't quite connect until I started writing through story, and some of it in chronological order, some of it being randoms that just need to pop in to strengthen the point. And it's been very, very revealing on, like, I know myself better today than I did before I started the book writing process with you a couple months ago. It's been
That's a
incredible.
pattern. Oh my goodness. I'm so glad you just said that because my personal experience and my belief, and what I've seen in so many women, especially women that are writing their memoirs, is that owning your story in the way that only comes through writing it as a book and declaring your voice worthy of writing a book, it's more powerful a journey than any plant medicine. And it's not temporary, it's permanent, right? The shifts are permanent and you're going through it sober.
And I'm
And
going through it sober.
yes. And so I remember years ago, I was watching one of my mentors, Samantha Wills. She's this fabulous business creator and jewelry designer out of Australia. And she was at the point in her career, 20 years after creating this multi-million dollar international company. She's like, okay, I'm going to write my memoir. And every post was her with a mug, and she's like, there's not coffee in this mug, bitches. This is vodka. She's like,
Yeah.
if you want to excavate your life and you want to tell it, you better believe there's going to be alcohol involved. And so I set out on a mission to make that not true, to make that
Oof.
not necessary. Look at us linking all of it, alcohol
Mhm.
and storytelling. And because when we do the excavation with us just surrounded by loving, like-minded people, all of a sudden it's not so scary, right?
Yes. In our society, especially, but just in general, abstaining from or changing your relationship to or completely eliminating altogether alcohol is an act of bravery. It's an act of bravery. It takes a very brave individual to be willing to release something that is maybe lets the guard down, or that does crack the door open to great ideas or things you wouldn't normally say. I mean, I specifically remember an old coworker sharing with me that her boyfriend didn't drink, and the boss chimed in and said, "That's unfortunate. You guys will never get drunk and just hash it out." And in that moment, I was like, well, it's not required to have deep conversation. But for some people, it is. Like, it is what they need to use to open up your voice. And so learning how to do that without the alcohol is a very brave thing to do. You're fully exposed. And that's a big part of the sobriety in the beginning, is just being fully exposed. And as I write this book, I feel fully exposed. it's it's full circle. Here we go again, reliving some of the things, and again, no shame, but so I just want to hold that version of me and just, wow, give her so much love.
Yes. Ooh, I just feel so much hope when I look out at the collective, at the generation that's coming up, because there are really fascinating trends
Yes.
away from binge culture.
Yep.
And I'm seeing, I don't know if you're seeing the same thing, but it is no longer cool to get shit-faced among middle and high schoolers. And I never thought I would see the day, but I'm so pleased because I grew up, I'm born in 86. I'm 37 now. Jeez. Beautiful, beautiful. I literally sometimes don't know how old I am because I have a 10-month-old and my brain uses all of its energy for more relevant things. But the point is, when I was growing up in Canada and the US at least, it was necessary for social cohesion for everyone to go through these rites of initiation of just getting blackout drunk.
Mm-hmm.
And our culture was so impoverished that we didn't have legitimate rites of initiation for our youth. So it's like, can you sneak alcohol? Can you go to a party and not get caught? Can you do all of these dangerous, daring things and dangerous, daring behavior that comes with it? Risk your safety and get away with it. Then you're cool. Then you're one of us. And I'm so glad that that's just slipping away.
Mm-hmm.
And that sobriety is becoming cool. And I even saw a piece in the New York Times. I didn't dive all the way in, but it was like, is everyone sober now? And I was like, whoa, so it's going mainstream. What?
It really is going mainstream. I again, so when I got sober in Seattle, I was was, going to AA. I went to a traditional treatment center. Like all of this will be in the book because that was the only option at the time. So I was surrounded by people who identified as alcoholics and had this debilitating relationship with alcohol. And I started to go to yoga because I didn't want to go in the room with people who were struggling with alcohol. I wanted to go in the room with people who just didn't drink alcohol. And I remember reading the bio of this yoga teacher, and he specifically said, I'm alcohol free. And I was like, oh my God, I just found my first alcohol free friend. Not because they were addicted, but because they just abstain. And then that just went 10x in Mexico. That was my first experience being in community where people just didn't drink alcohol because of the vibration or the frequency or any of those terms that you want to throw in. It blocked them from whatever they wanted to manifest or call in or how they wanted to feel, not because they were addicts or alcoholics or had an unhealthy relationship for it. And I just felt like, here are my people that can see it for what it is, just like anything else. I don't consume this because it makes me feel this way. Insert anything here. So the fact that that's now finally kind of being the movement, it's really amazing because it's not about the alcohol at the end of the day. It's really about how do you want to feel and how do you want to express and what sort of experience do you want to have on this very short amount of time that we have playing in this I could go on and on and on. I'm obviously very passionate about this.
Yes, and that's the beauty. We can feel that you are lit up on fire in this wonderfully non-judgmental and yet wholly informed and like such a straight. Yeah, I just see you as a pillar, a beacon, a lighthouse, and feel so much gratitude that you're willing to come on podcasts like The New Boss and share your story so really. And I know your book is gonna dive a whole like the cocaine story. We didn't even go into it, but let's save some juice for the book.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah, the book has some juice. And I don't intend to take the reader through what I would say the hell state, like the pain, the pain, the pain, the pain by story after story after story. But there is enough in there to really at least paint the picture that there was some soul suffering happening. And it's written in a way where I'm not blaming anything outside of me. There's a sacred ownership to every experience that I've been through. And today, in hindsight, again, which is where I hope every person can get to, is there's gratitude for those experiences because it is who I am today. I wouldn't be who I am today without those experiences. And that includes the ones that I don't ever want to have again, but they were necessary to have.
Wow, what a zoomed out and really illuminating perspective to share. I hope that we can all adopt that and then hold on to it. Because I feel like for me personally, I get those flashes of insight and acceptance. And then sometimes when you're in the middle of a new challenge, you're like, why? The victim likes to come in and be like, does it have to be this hard?
Yeah.
And as a Scorpio, I'm like, why is it always initiation after initiation?
Yeah.
But there's a lot of joy too, and having you on this chat has been such a joy. Having you inside of Boss Books Collective
Oh,
is a joy. You just won our leaderboard, so you're getting some prizes this month just for contributing and sharing yourself so openly and supporting others in their book title choices and all the things. So I'll just
mm,
say to anyone who's listening and is inspired by the idea of writing a book, whether it's a memoir or a how-to or just going through the personal discovery that inevitably comes with writing a book, you would be so welcome inside of our membership. It is very affordable on purpose. You get over $1,000 of value every month for under $100. So get in, check it out. If it's not your vibe, you can leave and we'll wish you well. But I'll put all the links here as well as links to connect with Lauren.
mhm.
Lauren, is
You
there
know,
anything
I
else? Yeah,
Yes,
tell
I
me.
have to plug your collective for a minute because it is not only is it so well structured, but the value of the knowledge that you deliver to us members is it's invaluable. There's obviously the accountability, which is extremely important, and I we didn't talk about that today, but I believe it's a non-negotiable on an alcohol-free journey is having accountability. So I'm getting that in this group. But there's also the amount that I'm learning and the realization of how little I actually knew when it came to writing a book. I love writing, but when it comes to writing a nonfiction memoir, and I'm learning all of that. And so it's just absolutely incredible if you actually want to finish what you've started or do the thing that you say you want to do, streamline your process by getting into a collective and getting mentorship. It's just so simple. So thank you that for creating it. And I love being an active member and participant in it because I'm getting so much from it.
Mm, thank you, Lauren. I would love to ask if there's any download or share from your heart that you would like to leave our listeners with.
When I got sober, it gave me purpose. For the first time in my life, I thought I found purpose through the fitness industry, and that's in my book, which is not untrue. It did change my relationship with my body and health and all of that. But when I got sober, it became crystal clear that my mission here on this earth is to help people who are struggling in any capacity. And that is, even if it's just showing up as a possibility portal, not saying like you need to work with me to get what you want, but maybe you can just see that this is possible for you too. And maybe you can learn to believe that your life is sacred and that you deserve to feel happy and liberated and free and satisfied and fulfilled in your life. That good enough, it doesn't have to be enough, it can be great. And anyone who's listening, just know that you are worthy of that. You are worthy of that. And through the introspection and the self actualization, remembering who you are, falling in love with yourself again, and having the identity shift where you're like, let's go live in this life.
Wow, what a prayer. What a beautiful anthem. I'm so excited to see what you do next, my dear. And it's a treat having you in conversation today. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for having the platform to bring us on to share our voices.
Yes, well, we will be talking next inside the collective. And until then, take care. And to everyone listening, remember that you are sovereign. You are so precious, and I love you lots.
Mm.
Bye for now. Pew, pew, pew. Pew, pew, pew.